Hello, welcome to MeetUpPro. My name is Semoon Nakama. I'm a junior at University of Maryland, studying social data science, and I'm interning at MoCo as part of the industry engagement team. And so today we have a special guest. I'm here with Katya Sergeyeva. She is an incoming senior at Seattle Pacific University, and she's currently working as an interior designer at Crested Crane Interiors. So thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy day to do this interview. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great. Glad to have you. So I guess first things first, I want to ask you if you could walk us through the process of how you became an interior designer. So maybe you can elaborate on your educational and professional background, what major you took, how many years it took, stuff like that.
Okay. Well, for me personally, um first of all, there's a different approach for how you could become a designer. You could go to school or you don't necessarily have to go to school, but it's preferred that you do. So I ended up going to school, and I'm getting my bachelor's in interior design. Um, and it's a 4-year program, but then you can get certified in an exam called the NCIDQ, which basically means I have to work for 2 years after graduating, and then I have to take this big exam and combine that with my work experience, and I get a special certification that makes me look really qualified as a designer. Um, so that stands out a lot for job opportunities. And then a lot of it has to do with work experience. So even if you get a good amount of knowledge of like the basics of design in school, what I'm realizing as I'm working is a lot of it has to do with like hands-on, like actually working with clients because they are very particular about what they want for their space. So you can have an idea of what you want when you're designing something in school, but in reality, people may not like that for their homes or for their stores. So you need to be you need to gain a lot of experience with that. So what I yeah, I think that's like the main thing that I'm realizing is like having time to work is very helpful in like giving me like more confidence in what I'm doing more than school is, although school is important as like a foundation for like the basics. And, um, yes, that's what I think.
I see. So taking that main or that exam, as you mentioned, to get your licensure is what you need to become an interior designer, basically.
It varies per state, but usually in most states, it's preferred that you're certified.
I see.
It's not mandatory nationally, but it really helps to have it. And then there are some states, I think California, there's like a good handful of states, and I live in Washington. We're not required to take it here, but it's really helpful for like job applications. So it's highly recommended that we take it.
I see. Awesome. I'm sure the students who are watching this might be curious, but would you say this final exam is very competitive? It's highly uh,
Mm,
hard.
it's hard, yeah. It's expensive. It's $1,000 to take it. And you have I think once you pay the 1,000, you have a year to take it. So you can retake it multiple times. It's not like if you fail, you have to pay $1,000 again. No, it's just you have a span of like a year or two, I forget exactly, to take the test and pass it. Um, and it is challenging because a lot of it has to do with code, like safety codes for like buildings and like the materials, like flammability, like safe passages through the space. So it's very technical. Um, so it is hard, but it looks really good if you pass. So
Hmm.
I think you just have to work hard and it'll be okay. And then a lot of it, like a lot of the codes and like the rules you use when you're working. So it's not like you just have to memorize random things that you'll never use again. It's stuff that you're gonna need on the job. So it's okay.
I see. So let's say I wasn't gonna go to college. I'm not gonna go on this traditional route and take this like
Mhm.
exam. as you mentioned, like there's different avenues to become an interior designer. Um,
Mhm.
what would that look like? Would that look like just getting your feet wet with like actual experience in a company, diversifying your
Mhm.
portfolio? Yeah. For those who are interested in interior design but not going to college or university, how, like, do you know how that would look like?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it has to do with connections. That's the main thing because if someone's hiring a designer and they see that you don't have any education experience or background, it doesn't look good to someone who's hiring. Because then it's like, well, how do you know that this person knows what they're doing, you know? So a lot of it has to do with I know someone who's willing to hire me, or you find someone who's willing to invest and train you. That is an option. Like you can get trained on site. But what I've heard from people who've hired designers who don't have any education or like formal training is that you can tell there's a difference in the quality of the work that they produce, especially initially. Like even if you're really talented, you need a certain foundation with classes that you take. It's very helpful. So it is possible, but I'm not necessarily recommending that you just go straight without getting an education.
Got
It is something that can be done.
it. That is, yeah, very useful to know.
Mhm.
Maybe we can move on to the second question. The second question is, what inspired you to pursue this career path? And I guess if this applies to
Mm.
you, perhaps you can shed light on a time where you realized that interior design is for me, you know?
Yeah. Mm. Well, I feel like this has been something that I'm interested in, or like the housing industry is something I've been interested in since I was little. I wanted to be an architect for a while, and I'm still kind of interested in that potentially in the future. Um, But yeah, when I was little, I used to make like houses for my dolls and I'd like decorate them super detailed and like, you know, like the quality that you can as a kid. But I was really interested in like the little details of like making everything really pretty. And then as I got older, one of my friend's dads owned a construction company. And I would go over there and just hang out there and I just like watch him build things. And I was like, this is so cool. Like this is it. Like I love it. Um, yeah, I was so interested in like the process of everything coming together. Like you see the empty space and you see like the potential of what the space could become. That was a lot of fun for me. Like ideas of like, oh, you could put this here, you could put this here. And then I watched a lot of shows, like interior design shows as a kid with my mom. So I think all those things kind of set me on that path. But I decided to be a designer, I think in high school, but I knew that it was something like something in that area was what I was gonna do. I was always kind of interested in that, and I knew it was a good fit. And it was nice because my family, a lot of us are in like housing design or like drafting or so it's kind of a family thing. We're all um interested in that. So I feel like I'm just following what my family's doing. It's I think that's pretty cool. So I feel like I'm definitely in the right place. That's for sure. Like as I'm in school, the more like, I'm learning about these things, I really feel like yeah, like I've never felt that oh maybe there's something better I should be doing. Like is this really what I want to do? Like I feel like this is definitely the right fit for me, and that's a really nice feeling.
Hmm, I'm glad to hear that. It's awesome. Maybe I'm speaking on behalf of people who have interest in interior design or
Mhm.
perhaps an interest in like creativity and stuff like that. Um, I guess what kind of, I'm trying to word this right. Um, for those who are interested in like creativity and hands-on kind of stuff,
Mhm.
do you think like interior design would be like a good fit for them? Like people who feel like they have that creative nature and they want to, yeah, create something beautiful. Do you feel that interior design would be a good fit for them? Like, would how would they know if their interests are aligned with interior design? I hope that makes sense.
Mm, interesting. Well, first of all, I think if you are creative and you like problem solving, you'll enjoy interior design. because it's definitely a very creative field, but there's also certain parameters that you have to work within. So again, like the site, you have to think about um, what the properties like. You have to think about the materials that are okay to use. You have to think about what the person living or using the space is going to think or feel when they're inside the space. So you can't just freely create like something like some career paths. You have to consider a bunch of different things and you have to think, okay, how do I make this the most effective and the most beautiful space? So functional, beautiful, pleasant to be in. Um, yeah, so that's kind of what is important to consider. But then I think, kind of going back to your question of how do you know if you might be good for a design position? I think just if you like problem solving, if you like working with your hands, because it's a lot of physical work, like creating things with your hands or like drafting on the computer, like making drawings on the computer. It doesn't require too much brain power a lot of the time. Like often I have a movie in the background and I can just work.
Mm.
And that's a lot of fun. So if you like doing things where you can just create and work with your hands or just like visually see things, this is going to be a good fit for you. That's what I would say. But I do think that it's important to be detail oriented and yeah, that's a big one because there's a lot of little things that you have to keep in mind and you have to be aware when you're picking something. You can't just see it and be like, this looks good. I want to pick this. Like I want to use this for the space. That's definitely not a good approach. You have to consider, okay, how is this going to be used? Like how is it going to be cleaned and maintained and installed and how much does it cost? Like keeping all those things in mind. So having like an open mind and attention to detail are very important.
Mm. Yeah, I think that touched on a really good point about perhaps the misconceptions in the field of interior design. Because when I personally think of interior design, I mostly think of just creating something that's like aesthetically pleasing or something really
Mm-hmm.
cool. But there's actually so much more to it. Like
Mm-hmm.
problem solving, as you mentioned, maybe budgeting and finance or project management or collaborating with different professionals in different like disciplines and yeah, perhaps communicating with your clients, right, to see what their needs are.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot that goes into it more than just making something really beautiful. But yeah, if you're
Yeah.
interested in problem solving and creativity, I think interior design would be a good fit for you.
Yeah.
Um, okay, maybe we can talk about what a typical day of your work looks like.
Mm. Well, it varies depending on the project, but usually, so I work remote, which is really nice because my schedule is very flexible. Um, but usually I'll have a call with my boss and I'll text her and I'll um kind of give her a heads up about what I'll be working on for the day. Um, and it's nice because I can choose wherever I want in the house to work and I have to keep track of my own schedule. So it's a lot about integrity. So you have to keep track of the hours that you're working. This isn't for every designer. People who work in an office, it's very different. And that's for me. So I'll usually have something on in the background, like a movie or a show, or just something to entertain me while I'm working. And I'll be working on a lot of the time I draw floor plans. So for meetings with my clients or my boss, we need to have those to show to the clients and show like this is how we want to use your space. So I'd be creating a lot of those, or I pick finishes. So like the paint, the flooring, the hardware, so like the door handles or the light fixtures, or a lot of the time I'll pick out furniture, which personally I don't really like to do. I'm more of a like the walls and like the flooring kind of person, or like the big picture and the layout of the space. But a lot of the time you will be asked to pick out furniture, or I am asked to pick out furniture. And so I'll do that for a couple hours, but because my job's remote, it's really nice because I can take breaks when I need to. So sometimes if I'm feeling like I've been staring at a screen for too long, I'll go on a walk or just go outside or get a snack. That's always good. And then a couple times a week, I'll have a meeting with a client and my boss, and we'll show them like, hey, this is what we've been working on for your design. Like this is, and we have to explain like why we chose what we chose. So let's say we chose to pick like a stone floor. We have to explain like we feel like this would be a really good choice for your space because this and that and that. Like, and then they either say, I love it, or not for me. And either way, it's okay because we're trying to find something that is like that works the best, but also that the client likes. So yeah. And then at the end of the day, I'll write down my hours or throughout the day if I take breaks. And yeah, I usually work well, right now when I'm in school, I'll work about 3 hours a day. Um, but since it's the summer now, I think I'm gonna be working more like 6 hours a day. Um, but yeah, that's kind of how it is.
Yeah. I really like the fact that you have a lot of flexibility in your work, and it sounds like every day is new. You get to work with a lot of different moving pieces. Maybe it's furniture one day, maybe it's something else, or maybe you get a new client, a new project. So I like the the yeah, diversity of your work. It's really cool to hear and see. Okay. I wanted to ask actually if you have any plans on furthering your education to grow in the field of interior
Mm,
design. Um, yeah, what would that look like if perhaps you're an interior designer, but you want to level up, or you want to, go beyond
mm,
your current position is? Um,
mm.
yeah, do you have any plans moving forward after you graduate?
Yeah, well, for me, I am not sure at this point. There are some options. So one is the NCIDQ, which I want to take, which I already mentioned. There's another option where a lot of designers will get their master's in architecture. So you have a more of an understanding of how the design will fit into the overall space. Because designers specialize in walls like inside the house that don't affect the overall structure of the house. The architects will focus on those walls. They're called load-bearing walls. And interior designers will focus on the non-load-bearing walls. So if you take one out, it wouldn't affect how the house functions. But if you were to get your master's in architecture, it helps you understand why we're not allowed to do certain things, like why we're not allowed to take out this wall or why this material doesn't work. So it gives you a better foundation to work with architects and work with other people who are going to be designing the house. So a lot of people will choose to do that. Or a lot of designers actually continue to become architects. So they'll work for a couple years as a designer and then you become an architect. You could also get your master's in interior design, but only a few schools not too many schools in the country offer that I know of. You could also go into, you can get a PhD. My professor has a PhD in interior design. But what I've heard is if you want to get a master's or a PhD in interior design, that's usually only useful if you want to teach later on. So if I wanted to be a teacher, I would do that. But I have no plan of being a teacher. So I think the only thing I would consider doing is maybe getting my master's in architecture because I'm still interested in that. So if I find that I want to challenge myself more or I want to look more credible to like my whoever I'm working with, then maybe that's something I'll do. But for now, I just want to focus on the NCIDQ. But again, I can't take it until I'm 2 years out of school. So for now, I'm just focusing on working.
Awesome. Well, you have 1 year left, so yeah, some time to think about your future plans. But that's exciting to hear. Um, okay, I think due to time, let's do two more questions, and we can call it. I want to ask you, what would you say is the most exciting and most challenging aspect about your job?
Mm, hmm. Most exciting. I think, hmm, there's a lot that I enjoy. But I think what's exciting for me is getting inspiration from random things. So, if I'm working on a project, this has happened a couple times already, and I have this with my boss where I'm like looking around, or I'll go to like a store or something and I see like a material that I think, wow, this will look really good in the house that we're designing. And I take a picture of it and I save that. So getting inspiration from everywhere that you go. And I feel like as a designer, your eyes are like, we are taught to develop our our awareness of things around us. So we're catching like, oh, this is this kind of material, and I really like this, and it looks good because of this. Like, why does this work in this space? And I really like that because you I feel like your observational skills are like developed, and then also I can use things that I like in my own designs. So that is really fun for me. Like actually a couple days ago, my boss texted me at like 1 a.m. She sent me a picture of the sink and she's like, I really like this. I want to use this in our house. And like if you think about it, like to any random person who's not interested in it, it's
Mhm.
like, why would you do that? That's go to
Mhm.
sleep. Like that's but we really care about what we're doing. And I think that's really cool. Like when you like what you're doing, like you'll find inspiration everywhere and you'll be excited to put together something.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. And then the hardest thing I think is for me, it's picking out like the small details. I because it's like for example, like furniture or like light switches or tile. Because for me, it's not necessarily the fact that like picking them out is hard. It's just there's so many options out there, you know? There's so many ways that you can make it good. And sometimes it's overwhelming because you're like, I want to do this, but I also want to do this. Like, I don't know. Like, it all looks good. It all should look good. And then when you think about it like that, you get kind of stuck because you're like, I can't commit. They're all pretty and I want to do everything, you know? Or it's like, this one has this benefit. It's really like good for sound insulation or whatever, but this one is this. And then it's just, you overthink it. And I think that happens a lot with designers because you want to make it the best that it can be, but then sometimes you get stuck. So you're, being a perfectionist, as a lot of us are, it's just like you you want to make it good, but you just keep getting stuck in like, what is the best choice for this space? But it's okay. We work past it, and eventually you learn that it's not always going to be perfect. It's just the best that you can make it. That's okay.
Yeah, well, that not much needs to be said or added after that. Yeah, thank you. Maybe we can wrap this up with this final question.
Hmm.
What advice or suggestions would you give to someone who's interested in the field of interior design?
Mm, good question. I think talk to some people who are designers already, because you already touched on this, but there's a lot of like people misunderstand what designers do a lot. They confuse us with decorators. That's very different.
Hmm.
Um, talk to designers like as much as you can. If you can go to a design like firm and see what they're doing, like if you have that option, or a site that's being developed, just do it. Get that experience. It's really fun and inspiring, and you get a better idea of what they do. Um, but also just like go to places that inspire you and excite you. It doesn't even have to be places that are being worked on, but like showrooms, or go to like um what are they called? Start sorry.
It's a
Um
business.
or like I forget what they're called. Like the model houses and like new construction. Just like look around, get yourself excited with those things. Yeah. And then I think those are the main things. Um, Also, this is very easy, but just like watch some design shows if that excites you, and if you're interested in watching those things, then it seems like you're already into that. So why not develop that? It's very simple. Um, and yeah, I would advise not to go into design if you're just looking for a job because you have to put a lot of energy into creating your designs and it takes time and effort and you have to care about it. And that becomes really obvious when you're in school and you have a lot of projects to do very quickly. So try not to go into it just because you can't think of anything better. Um, but if you're excited about it, go for it. It's a really fun job. So yeah.
Well, that's some solid advice, and I think that's a perfect wrap for this interview. thank you, Katya, for your time and for enlightening us with all of your wisdom. And we wish you good luck and success in your journey moving forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.